got a C730 Acer Chromebook with the 3 E, D and C key that don't work. It's already been taken apart once to try and get the ribbon cable to fix the problem, but the 3, the E, the D and the C don't work. Everything else on the keyboard works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to strip the whole Chromebook so that you can replace the hardest part of the Chromebook to replace, which is the keyboard and the plate that goes around it. Just going to turn it off, flip it over and take the plastic cover off on both sides just so I can get full access to it. Put it on its front. You can see it's a C730E model, and all you do is take out the 12 screws. What you'll see is, as I take the Chromebook apart, what I normally do is I would put the screws in a similar position to where they've been taken out of. So if it's say a screw that's on the right hand side, I would put the screw back down on the right hand side, so as I put the Chromebook back together it's in a similar position. But these are the only screws that I wouldn't do this with, because they're from the case. Once I start taking the inside apart, there would be too many screws lying around. So what I'll do is I just put all 12 of the screws in a similar pile off to one side so they don't get in the way. But you'll see as I take the Chromebook apart, it's a good way of remembering which screws go where, because there's 3 or 4 screws in this one that look similar but they're different lengths, and if you put them in, once the Chromebook's used again and lent on, it can actually pierce the case or it can break the board that it's on. So it's not a good thing to do. Just take these out. This job's actually, once you've done it 3 or 4 times, it's not that complicated. It's probably about a 15-minute job from start to finish, but if it's your first time, it might take an extra 5 or 10 minutes just to get yourself going. So you can use one like a spacer tool and put it in and pop it out, but as long as the screws are out, you're fine. And all I would do is turn it and put it sideways. Okay. Once you've opened it, I don't know if you'll have had one of these open before, but it's quite simple set out, and I'll show you how to take it apart. The first thing I would do is I would take off the other side of the case. It just gets stuck really gently, so you can just take this and keep it completely out of the way. And then the next thing to do is to take the battery out. Now, before I do that, I'll explain what I said already. The 4 keys weren't working in a row, so what I would normally do is I would get to this point and all I would do would be take the ribbon cable off, and just check that the line on the motherboard lines up with the lines on the ribbon cable. A lot of the time when you do this, the ribbon cable's at an angle, and if it's at an angle, just because the Chromebook's been moved around in a kid's bag or somebody who's using it, that means some of the keys might not work, and all you would do is you would take this out, you would clean the edge, and then you'd put it back in and make sure that this line lines up with the line that's on the Chromebook on the motherboard. Okay? But that's already been done in this model, and it's been identified that it's not to do with this, which probably means that it's either the keyboard or the motherboard that are at fault. So when we do this, we would just fully replace the keyboard and then test it, and if it's not, then it's a motherboard and it's a write-off. Okay? So what we would do now, that's the other thing, is I would normally, if you take any of the tape off, I would normally put it down in front of myself so I know that I've got tape to put back on. And then all I'll do now is I would take off these connectors. So that's power, and then the sound just means if I pull anything, there's nothing that's connected. And then all I do now is a really simple one, is take the battery off to start with, which means nothing's got power on it. Now what you'll see is I put the screws in a pile where they're meant to be, so on either side, and then I just lift the battery out and I'll put it over here on my pile of other bits. Okay? So now you start to see the actual case. Now what I would do next is I would take the wireless card off. So this is really important that you're really careful. You don't go too heavy on it because the actual connection on the wireless card is quite light, and so if you pop it too hard or you force it, then, and if it doesn't just come, then the little connections on the actual card can get torn off and stick to the cable. So you just want to be really careful. And then this screw is different than in all the others, so I'll put it over here and I'll put the wireless card, oh, that was a bit, and I'll put the wireless card down next to it. And then all I do is I pop the protectors and I'll put them out of the way, okay? And then now what I'll do, now that all these ribbon cables and stuff are disconnected, I'll go around and I'll disconnect the motherboard, okay? The big flat one is the easy one to remember because it goes over here. And then what I'll do is I'll actually take all of the others out and put them in one pile. When I'm putting it back together, I'll show you an easy way to remember where all the screws go. It's really obvious, but I just go around and take the others out. Right, I think that's all the screws out the motherboard, right? So you've taken all these out. Now what you want to do is you want to take the screws out of the hinges, okay? So there's 3 screws in each hinge. So there's 2 on the outside and then 1 on the inside that hold the hinge on. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take them out the hinge and then I'm going to put them in the corner that the hinge is on, so remember that it's that hinges. And I'll show you that we're getting to the point now where all the pieces are about to separate. There we go. Okay, and it's separated. Now what I would do is I would make sure the screws are at the side, and you'll see because what I'm going to do next, right? So you've got all the screws off, motherboard, you could lift the motherboard, but what I do at the moment is I lift it so it opens the hinge up and then I drop it back down again, and what it does is it creates enough space that you can now pop it out, and what I do is open it up again and then pop it, and it should, this bit should all come off completely. Okay, so now you've got your motherboard, your screen with your Wi-Fi connector, because the cable for the Wi-Fi goes through the screen and connects up here. Okay, and now you've got a completely separated keyboard panel. Now what you're going to have to do is, once you put the new one in, which I've got over here, you're then going to have to take the speakers with the wire on it and the touchpad off of this one and the protective plate as well, and you're going to have to put it back on. So what I'll do is I'll do that just now, and I'll just take them out so that you see them, and I'll just put it down next to the box and you'll see. So one goes here, and then again it's really important that you keep these screws separate from the others because these are the ones that are really short. If you put the longer screws that are used with the motherboard here, then it will take them, but then when the kid leans on them, they're a fraction longer and they'll pierce through the case and they'll break your connection. Okay, you've just got to lift this up and flip it, and then you have 3 screws which I'll put on the other side. Screws on the other side, and then the whole thing should pop out, and all there is a little bit of tape that's underneath which should pop. Okay, and now you've got touchpad with no connection, and you just put it over here, right? And then the last bit is the speakers. Speakers really easy. Just pop it. It's just stuck on a little bit, and then it goes round. It's a connector. Underneath, underneath, underneath again. Oops. So sometimes these just come straight off and sometimes they actually stick pretty well. So you've just got to lift them. That's another yellow tape just for that corner, holding the cable down. And then this one, and then pop it on the other side. Okay, and then just remember that with this one, the connection's on the left hand side, so when you put it back on, you don't put it on the wrong way round. Okay, and then that's that's the piece that now you're going to replace. Okay, so you take this, take it away, and then here's my new one. Okay. I don't think this is actually a new one. I think this is one that's been used because it doesn't have any tape on it, so I'll just get another one out of the box. Here we go. Right, so the other one was probably one that someone's put back in the box because it didn't have any yellow connectors. What you'll see is, take it out and it's got, see the little bits of paper? The bits of paper are the tabs for where you have to stick everything back on. So now you've got a brand new spotless unit. I think if you buy these online, they're about £30 for a whole keyboard. If you're getting them replaced by a company, a lot of them will charge 50 or 60, but you can get them online for between 28 and £30. So what you do now is you do the reverse of what you did to separate your stuff, okay? And then I'll show you how to put the stuff back on. So you take it and you put it down on the hinge, and then you push it through so it comes back on itself, and then now you can bend it with the hinge and bend it a slight bit this way, and then what I'll do is I'll take the motherboard and I'll put the motherboard, oh no, and then what I'll do, this is the cheeky bit, so what you want to do it easily is put the speakers in now, because it means you're not putting stuff underneath the motherboard. So you just put the tab down, put the tab down underneath the ribbon, put the tab down, remember to have the connection on this side, last one, and put the tab down, and then put it this down, and the glue on it should still be strong enough, and then just chuck all the tabs out of the way. The same will happen with these tabs when you put the Wi-Fi card down, cable down, but you can do that after. And then now that you've got the pad down and you've got the cables down, you just pop it back in and you slide it almost into place so that it clips in. And then from there you can now put the hinge down on top of it. This is the tourniquet bit because you've got to try and get it, right? And then put this, and then put this on here, and put it. And now what you do is you just take your screwdriver, and I would advise to put your three screws back in. Again, make sure that you put the right screws in the right place, because these are all slightly different sizes, and if you put the wrong size in the wrong place, if you put the ones that are too short in here, then what will happen is you'll think that everything's connected and screwed together, and actually the hinge will come apart, and either the screws will come out inside the box or the whole Chromebook will come apart at the hinges. Right, so now it's held together, it's back on. What I'll do now is I'll put the screws back in, the 4 screws into the motherboard, and then the flat one as well. So you'll notice that if you look from there, there's only 4 screws on the motherboard that have arrows, and that's where the screws go back in. Okay, so the rest are for when the case goes on. So it's really easy if you've not done this before to think, oh, the screws must go in the corners. What you actually do is you put the screws where the arrows are on the motherboard. This one is on. I'm filming myself putting one of these together. In, and then all you do is you do the same again with the tabs. So one tab goes through that space, should go under now. It's a bit of a weird fit. And under, it goes over, and then the white goes at the top. It should just click down, and then the black goes underneath. That should be your Wi-Fi card connected. Now got your ribbon cable. Remember, the line on the ribbon cable should line up with the line on the motherboard. Now what we need to do is we need to put the pad back in. Yes, there, isn't it? It's underneath. So the 3 screws off the pad, and these are the 4 screws, okay. So I'm going to go in here. So put your tape back down just to hold it in place. Other screw goes in. There we go, and then you lift this over and down, and it shows that. And then this one, if you move this tab, there's 2 battery screws. Actually, oh, there's 4, isn't there yet? So put this down. Again, these are the half-size screws. You don't want to put any long screws in and get them mixed up with the ones for the battery, because they'll pierce through the case when you screw them down or when the kid leans on them. Don't know. I don't know. It's going to be the fun bit. hopefully, let's see, Wi-Fi is reconnected. 3, E, D and C now work. Perfect.